There we are. Okay, welcome to our conversation on how infertility affects the military community with Dr. Margaret Harrell, the Chief Program Officer of the Bob Woodruff Foundation. I'll do a quick intro for you, Dr. Harrell, and then we'll dive into some questions.
Okay.
You had a very long and impressive bio, so I couldn't include it all here. You've done some incredible work. So I'm really just giving like spark notes, so to speak. So prior to the Bob Woodruff Foundation, Meg or Margaret was the executive director of Force Resiliency for the Office of the Secretary of Defense. There, she was responsible for the OSD offices and policy pertaining to sexual assault prevention and response, suicide prevention, diversity management, equal opportunity, drug reduction, and personal safety. She was also responsible for Department of Defense collaborative efforts with the Department of Veterans Affairs. Her research portfolio is very vast, including approximately 70 publications. She holds a BA with distinction from the University of Virginia, an MS in Systems Analysis and Management from the George Washington University, and a PhD in cultural anthropology, which, I mean, that's a different podcast, but I could ask you a million questions about cultural anthropology, also from the University of Virginia, with her dissertation focused on military culture. So happy to have you here with us.
Thank you, Lauren. It's a pleasure to join you today.
Of course. So we'll dive right into it. Do you mind telling us a little bit about the story and mission behind the Bob Woodruff Foundation?
I'd love to. So, the foundation, the Bob Woodruff Foundation, was founded in 2006. Bob was an ABC News anchor at that time for World News Tonight, and he was reporting in Iraq. He was riding in an armored vehicle, and they hit a roadside bomb. And Bob sustained just a horrendous, life-threatening, traumatic brain injury, as well as other wounds. And it was due to the very quick action of the military service members, the medics, and the military medical professionals there in theater. Um, they saved Bob's life. And although his family at the time didn't know he was going to experience the remarkable recovery that he has, you know, it was very tough for their family. He spent a little bit over a month in a medically induced coma at Walter Reed. And during that time, his wife Lee and his brother Dave had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with the other service members and their families that were being treated at Walter Reed. And they learned about the challenges that military families face. And it was really Lee and Dave's resolution to draw attention to these challenges of the military community and to help support them. So the foundation was born. We work to ensure that our veterans, our service members, and their families, really those who have stood for us, have stable and successful futures. And I'm excited to say that we've grown from what was really a small family effort at the time into a significant foundation now. We've invested almost $160 million in programs that support our military and veteran community. And we've also built the largest non-governmental network of nonprofits and organizations that serve the military veteran community. And this was really part of the vision from the very beginning, that the foundation was inspired to imagine a network of organizations all across the country that could share resources and their expertise and their knowledge to help address these issues that veterans face. And that those range from hunger and housing to mental and physical health issues. And that's what our Got Your Six network is today, because although most military veterans are doing extremely well, they come out of military service, smarter and stronger than they were. There's a minority that is still a significant minority that needs some support. And that's what we do with our Got Your Six network. We help those. And I don't know if you're familiar with the phrase got your six, but in the military world, in military culture, it means I've got your back. And that's really what our organizations are doing. They have the backs of these service members and veterans. And our partners are in all 50 states, in Puerto Rico and Guam and American Samoa. And it's through this network, we're happy to say that 97% of our country's veterans and service members have access in their communities to these resources.
That's fantastic. It's really great to talk to people like you, who are doing such amazing work. I know that there's also a personal connection for you. Do you mind telling us a little bit more about your personal connection? What led you to the Bob Woodruff Foundation?
Sure. Well, I married a Navy guy, but before that, I grew up in an Army family. My dad was career Army. So my mom moved 19 times in the 22 years that my dad was in service. Obviously, I experienced a large chunk of that, but not all of that. But my siblings and I experienced a very, in some ways, typical Army life in that, I went to 9 different schools before I graduated. So military life was very, very good for me and for my siblings and for my parents. But it's, some families really struggle with the challenges that that lifestyle presents.
Yeah, you're reminding me of my grandma. I'm sure everyone has some
Mhm.
sort of military connection, but she grew up moving, and my mom would always talk about it as well as a military family. We'll switch a little bit to talk more about Viva particularly. So, Viva helps wounded veterans struggling with infertility achieve their dream of growing their families. What was the reason for starting this work in 2017?
Well, this was actually a passion project originally for Lee Woodruff, Bob's wife. Um, Early in the foundation days, when she was talking to military families, especially female spouses, she was hearing about challenges of intimacy and infertility. And we started this fund to help veterans have a family because we were hearing about couples that were putting the cost of IVF on their credit cards. And, that's $20,000 or more. And so she was talking to young couples that were going into debt trying to start a family. So we initiated Viva. Along the way, the VA started providing IVF services for veterans. And we really thought that we were going to happily sunset Viva and get out of this business, but it turns out that we have a special place. So we complement the VA's offerings. The VA provides IVF services to some veterans, but not everybody's eligible for those services. So when veterans come to us seeking fertility assistance, we coordinate with the VA. If they're eligible for VA programming, we do a warm handoff to the VA. And at the same time, the VA is handing veterans to us when there's veterans who need fertility services that aren't eligible for VA services, and Viva can help.
What are those top reasons that veterans maybe can't access the fertility support that they need today?
Well, um, we through the Viva program will provide IVF support for any veteran that has a service-connected fertility challenge, but we do recognize more illnesses and conditions as being service-connected fertility challenges than many other organizations do. So we have a wider
Mm.
really embrace of what might justify having Viva support. If there is research indicating that a condition or an illness is linked to infertility, then we'll help those couples. And for us, that includes PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. It includes traumatic brain injuries. It includes depression and anxiety, illnesses where the treatment has fertility implications. And the VA will recognize some of these, but not all of them. And so it lets us help those veterans that are seeking to become parents if the VA can't support them. The VA is also precluded by law, and this is not VA decision. This is Congress, but the VA is precluded by law from providing IVF for veterans who require donor eggs or donor sperm or use a surrogate. Um, and who are not in a legal male-female marriage. And so that's another population of, prospective parents that we can help.
Absolutely. That's so great that you're able to help those parents. And very interesting to see how the law impacts the VA and your work as well. What is the impact of the Viva program so far?
Well, anytime we're talking about Viva Impact, it makes me smile. We've invested a little bit over $1 million to date, and we have 70 babies so far, and another, I think, 7 on the way. But so often we get calls from our Viva couples with surprises about another pregnancy. And I had to smile recently. A veteran called very recently, super excited because she just learned that she's expecting twins in the summer. And, we celebrated with her. And then she said, I have to go. I have to tell my mom. And, we were so touched that she called us first. But, so many of these veterans, our Viva administrator, Anne, is, holding their hand through so much of this process, and they become part of our family.
That's really incredible. Yeah, it's always heartwarming to hear those stories. And yeah, see the families that you're growing. Um, I also want to talk a bit about financing, which we touched on slightly earlier. Sunfish focuses on, of course, the financial piece of building a family. In addition to support like Viva or loans, how do you think about veterans and veteran partners financially planning for their fertility journey?
Well, we've developed great partnerships with U.S. Fertility and other programs so that we can help the veterans identify clinics that will provide them services at a reduced rate and opportunities to receive the medications at reduced rate, because as you likely know, that's a huge portion of the expense for IVF. So we help them find those discounted services, and then the funding that we provide goes a little bit further for them. We'll help them with 2 cycles. So if they've have the unfortunate news from the first cycle that they're going to require a second cycle, we'll help them through that second cycle. We do have some families that were successful in their first cycle, and we've since used that second cycle to help them have a second baby. Um, but we're seeing a lot of success from these families. It's just really an exciting way for us to have an impact with a financial investment.
Those are amazing resources. I will say, I think a misconception that we see a lot is a lot of people, on average, it takes 2 or more cycles of IVF to achieve pregnancy. It's something that we talk about a lot at Sunfish, and why we have a money back guarantee for each cycle, because we know that this is something that a lot of people don't realize, and we want everyone to be optimistic, and we want everyone to get pregnant right away. And also those financial costs can really add up quickly. If you think that if you're financially planning for 1 cycle of IVF and then that doesn't work out and you don't get that money back, and then you're, gearing up for the next cycle. So the fact that you guys covered 2 is really incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah. So in addition to service-connected infertility, what are the unique challenges facing military families that the Bob Woodruff Foundation works to solve, and how can they be addressed successfully? What resources and expertise are you providing veterans as part of the Bob Woodruff Foundation?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. Again, so many veteran families are doing exceedingly well, but there's some that struggle. And for those that struggle, we're helping them with everything from their mental health and well-being to employment to housing to legal issues. Those are all issues that we're working with our partners to help address. And that's in the veteran community. In the active duty community, those that are currently in uniform, we've had a couple of initiatives over the past year or so. We've really emphasized investments in military child mental health, which is a significant issue for all children across our country. But for military kids, there are the added challenges of you know, having a lifestyle where you're moving and your teachers and your friends are changing, and that can really exacerbate some challenges. The other thing that we're seeing in military families, which is really concerning, is food insecurity. And this is families that are currently serving. They have a service member in uniform, serving in defense of our nation. And even by Department of Defense measures, as many as 24% of military families are struggling with food insecurity.
Wow. That's another incredible initiative. Okay. I think we maybe touched on some of this as well. Can you name your top two reasons or the top two reasons that make Viva so unique?
It's the only program that I know of that is focused on IVF in the military and veteran community. And our expertise in navigating this network of clinics and resources for um, these service members and veterans, I think, makes us very special and very unique. It's a special population, one that we're especially pleased to be so close to and trusted by, and I think that's what really makes us different.
That's awesome.
It's hard, especially for veterans that suffered a battlefield wound that affected their fertility. We are providing Viva support to veterans whose families don't know that they're proceeding through IVF. And as you
Wow.
know, IVF is such a stressful, rewarding, hopefully, but incredibly stressful and emotional process and procedure to go through. Um, it hurts my heart sometimes to think that some of these couples don't have the support of their family, who just don't know.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And especially what you're saying around how many different factors can contribute to infertility. It feels like there's still a lot of varying opinions and ideas and research and literature around that as well. And so the fact that Viva is incorporating, things like PTSD and stress, which like we see have a really big impact on this journey. Yeah, we always talk about how IVF is, stressful enough. The financial piece of it shouldn't be added stress. And it
Right.
unfortunately is a lot of times. And so there needs to be more resources helping people plan for their journeys, access grants and discounts, access financing. I think there's just such a big need.
We have some veterans come to us and say, I read about your program. I know that you'll help veterans who have a service connected reason for infertility. I don't have that. I just have PTSD, or I just have TBI, or I just have a, military diagnosis of depression. And we're able to say, no, that's actually affecting your fertility, and we're here to help you with that. But so many individuals don't recognize that, those diagnoses or those conditions that they're experiencing are affecting their fertility.
Right. It's such a big shift culturally too, right? This idea that your brain is in your body and your mental health impacts your physical health and vice versa. And it's all one and the same. And culturally, how that is hopefully changing more and more. And, the recognition um, of that, I think, is really important.
Right. Well, as a non-medical person, fertility almost feels like magic, right? But everything
Yeah.
has to align perfectly, in your body for that to happen. And if you're struggling with other health conditions, that can definitely impede, that perfect alignment.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, last question. If there's anything else that you hope for the future of family planning in the veteran community, this is your chance to share that as well.
I hope that more veterans will recognize that we're here to help and will ask for help. And I hope that, as you mentioned, the stigma of seeking infertility services is reduced, so that, although we're thrilled to be part of the support network for these prospective parents, I'm hopeful that, they'll have other family and friends in their camp as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for joining me today. I've learned so much, and I really, it's been such a heartwarming conversation. It's making me think, feel optimistic about the future and the people out there who are trying to support families, people struggling with infertility, people who are just seeking alternatives to family building, and all different kinds of couples and people across the U.S. And veterans, of course. So thank
Well,
you so much.
Lauren, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure talking about the Viva program. The Bob Woodruff Foundation has been so thrilled that we can continue to provide this support for our veterans.
Incredible. All right. That was amazing.